good evening. Welcome to Courtroom Insider from my car. Just leaving Park City, Utah after an eventful 2 days, headed back to Idaho. There's no way we could not do a Courtroom Insider tonight though. So my hotel checkout time was earlier today. Obviously you have to check out earlier. I didn't have a place to chat with you all tonight, so here we are. Thank you for watching tonight. We're going to recap what happened today. Probably the most memorable witness we've heard from so far, arguably you could say. Kouri Richins' boyfriend, the secret boyfriend, the one she was having an affair with, took the stand and was clearly the most emotional witness we have heard from thus far. Josh Grossman appeared to cry, wiped tears from his eyes at one point, put his head down on the desk in front of him, answered questions, and really appeared distraught over this whole thing. And so we heard from him. We're going to talk about that. It's day 8. Day 8, right? Yeah. Day 8 of the trial. So we're going to get to that in just a moment. But before we get to him, I want to go through briefly. Here are the witnesses who we heard from today. LaShonda Rogers. She is a woman who works for an insurance company, life insurance company, New York Life. And she testified about insurance policies. We also heard from Brian Freckleton, who is an insurance agent. By the way, I just have to say, this trial has the most interesting names out of all the trials I've covered, and the most hard to spell. Between the attorneys, Bloodworth, and the other prosecutors, sorry, their name, Lindsay's, I forget her last name, and the judge, and these names, I divert. Great names, amazing names, but when you have to type them over and over on my updates, they can be a little tricky. So Brian Freckleton, he is an insurance agent also. Ann Coates, we heard from her. Christina Miller, Crystal Bowman Carter. And then we also heard from Robert Grossman. That's where we ended the day. So I'm going to kind of start from the beginning of testimony today and then work our way to Robert's testimony. Let me see. The first witness we heard from was LaShonda Rogers. And she talked about receiving a call from Mr. Freckleton, that second insurance agent, who he's the one that set up the policy for Eric and his business partner, Cody. What it was they each bought $2 million of life insurance, and the beneficiary for each of them was the other, with the condition that if one of them died, they would get the $2 million from the life insurance, and then they would use that money to buy out the stocks of the partner. It's a common business transaction. So basically they were set. When Eric died, Cody was supposed to receive the $2 million so that he could turn around and buy Eric's shares in the company, and then Cody could own it. However, on January 1st of 2022, there were some January 2nd of 2022, there were some unusual changes on the policy. It went in, and someone on the policy changed it from the recipient being Eric to Kouri, and then back to Eric again, and then I think one more time back to Kouri. Well, the second witness, Brian Freckleton, got alerted to that, and he was concerned, and so, because he gets an alert every time policy changes are made like that, he reached out to LaShonda Rogers from New York Life and said, hey, what happened with this? They did an investigation, and they found out that the person that went in and did this used Kouri Richins' email address. So they assumed it was Kouri. Now, Kouri had access to the accounts. Her email was an authorized user on the account. So it wasn't like super startling because she clearly had access to the account, much like if, my wife has all the logins for us and uses her email, or she has all the logins for me and uses my email, and both spouses can double check. So they weren't super concerned about it until June of 2022, after Eric had been dead for a few months. They realized, we should check on that and see who did it, and that is when they found out that Kouri did it. So those were what the first two witnesses testified about those changes in the life insurance policies, and what how they were able to do that. Another item to note, Eric got a new life insurance policy a month before he died in February, and February 3rd of 2022 for $100,000. Kouri was the beneficiary on that. Now, the policies for the previous the payouts for the previous policies went to Kouri for the amount of like $250,000 with a little bit of interest, $1,000 in interest. Those were paid out June 17th of 2022, so a few months after Kouri died. The policy, though, that Eric set out the month before he died, the one that he set up in February, that one was not paid out because they needed to investigate it, because he had just set it up. And the insurance agents explained that anytime you set up a new account, if there's any sort of death within the first 2 years, they automatically investigate it to make sure there was nothing nefarious. What they do is these insurance companies, twice a year, they run all of their clients through they match it up with the Social Security database, some sort of database, and if it comes back that one of their clients may have died, they then will go searching for obituaries, which is what they did in Eric's case, and that's how they found out that he had passed away, and that's when they did the payout. So there was talk about that. You can go back and watch those people and their testimony. We also had Ann Coates, who testified about insurance. She's the senior manager at the life insurance company. Again, similar testimony talking about payouts. Then we heard from Christina Miller. Now, Christina Miller is a divorce attorney. She has done a lot of divorces. She's been doing this 30 years, I believe she said. She's done around 2,000 divorces. And at this point, she's pretty well known in the Park City area, and she pretty much has these things down pat. You go to her, you first of all meet with her paralegal. If the paralegal accepts your case, you then go to meet with Miss Miller, and you get a packet of papers like this. It's very formulaic. And she compares the divorce to like two wet noodles going down on a plate. One is the emotional side of the divorce, the other is the legal side, and her job is to keep those noodles as straight as she can. Often they intersect with each other. She got a call in, 2020, October of 2020, from Kouri Richins' brother-in-law who testified, Clint, asking if her firm would meet with Eric. Eric was considering getting a divorce from Kouri. It ended up that Miller did meet with Eric for several hours, and after he met with the paralegal, and they talked about getting a divorce. And she said the meeting was for about 2.5 hours, and she said that it was unusual because Eric wanted all communication with the divorce attorney to go through his sister, because Kouri was snooping in his email. He did not want any communication with Kouri. Here's a little bit of what Miss Miller said.
During your meeting with Eric, did you give him legal advice about custody?
I did.
Describe, in 2020, what was the presumption when someone was contemplating divorce about how custody arrangements would work?
At that time, well, let me start with when I first started practicing, way back when. It was the old Ward and June Cleaver thing with regard to custody. Somebody had most of the time and the other person had weekends. There has been a wave through the legislature, through child psychologists, with regard to child psychologists focusing on what's in the best interest of kids, and the legislature listening to lobbyists. I was on the executive committee for the family law section of the Utah Bar at the time, so we closely watched what was going on in the legislature. So at that time in 2020, there had been a statute passed about 5 years previous that finally had an alternative parent time schedule that was more of a 60-40 type schedule. We called it fat weekends, but that is where courts were going. Courts, judges, custody evaluators were all trending towards equal parent time, 60-40 parent time, and so forth. So by 2020, this was October, there were already rumblings of a new statute being passed that would be an alternative statute for 50-50 parent time. That all these statutes have been renumbered in 22, but at that time that was 35.2 or going to be 35.2. But when I met with Eric, we had 35.1, which was this fat weekend. So I talked to him a lot about this is typically what happens with kids in going through a divorce. Unless there is something really that stood out. Almost all judges were going with more of a joint physical custody situation.
Eric never ended up filing for divorce. He was very concerned about his child custody. He reported that his income was around $33,000 a month, which for many, that's very, very high. But she said for a lot of her clients, that's traditional. And she also referred Eric to an estate planner. Eric, I guess that had come up in the conversation, which she admitted, Miss Miller admitted to the defense, that was unusual. She had not really done that with clients before, and it was an unusual request, but she did it. You can go back and watch all of her testimony too. After lunch, we went to lunch. After lunch, we heard from Crystal Bowman Carter. She is the estate planning attorney who was referred to from Miss Miller. She talked about how Eric, again, did not want her to communicate with him via email, that he wanted all communication to go to the third party, and they set up a living will and a trust for Eric. Eric was the trustee and the manager and the beneficiary of the trust, meaning he basically had complete control. However, he changed it so that if he were to die, the money from the trust, his sister would become the manager of it. She would get to make all of the decisions. The home was transferred from Eric to C&E Masonry, well, to the trust, actually. The trust owned the home, which Kouri apparently did not know that. And then Eric talked about power of attorney, giving somebody else power of attorney, and the original document for that was never signed, but then it was discussed later. Well, Bowman Carter got a call on March 4th from a sheriff deputies, or maybe it was that day or the day after, somewhere around the time Eric died, saying that Eric had passed away. And here's how that call went.
Did there come a time when you learned that Eric Richins had died?
Yes, I learned that day that he had died, March 4th, 2022.
And is that when you became aware of it, or was that a day later?
I believe I learned the day that it happened.
And how did you learn about Eric Richins' death?
Clint Benson called me and told me that he had died.
And did you also receive a call from a sheriff's deputy that day?
Yet later that day, I received a phone call from somebody who identified themselves as the sheriff's deputy, and who asked me to talk to Kouri.
And did you talk to Kouri on the phone that day?
Yes.
What did you tell her?
Apparently, she was upset about the house, and I was asked to explain that there was an estate plan in place and that the house belonged to the trust, and that's what I told her.
When you were explaining to Kouri Richins that the house belonged in the trust, how did she react?
Oh, not positively. She was livid. She was upset, and she said, "What is wrong with you people?" and handed the phone back to the officer, I believe.
When having this conversation with Kouri Richins, was it your impression that she was unaware of the estate plan?
Object to speculation, Your Honor.
I'll lay a little foundation.
What could you tell from your conversation with Kouri Richins about her knowledge regarding what would happen with the house?
She told me that the house she told me the house belonged to her. She thought the house was hers, and obviously, if she thought that, then she was unaware of the estate plan and that the trust owned the house.
Bowman Carter went on to say that 10 days after Eric died, she opened probate on the estate, which is extremely unusual. Normally, you wait a year till like all of the debt is past, like they can't collect on it anymore. He didn't have any debt. He had money. He was taken care of. He had assets, which was another reason why she said it was so weird to open probate. It's not like they desperately needed money. Well, maybe Kouri did, but it's not like everything was taken care of. And so she just thought that was unusual. He really cared about his kids. He wanted his kids taken care of. He said that she's even Kouri, it sounds like he really cared about. In fact, here's what she said when she was interviewed, what she recalled about Eric's concern for his family if he were to die, if something were to happen.
You also, in the trust documents that you drafted, it's pretty common that you do what's something called a statement of intent, right?
No, it's not common at all.
So it was unusual that you did that.
Yes.
Katie, can you pull up 412, page 1-2, section 103? This is in, Your Honor, if we could publish.
Okay. There you go.
And can you blow up the statement of my intent? So this is the part you said is unusual for you to do.
I mean, it's not unusual to, trusts will have them, but for me, I typically don't include one unless there's a reason.
So did you have a reason for including this?
Yes.
Okay. And I assume it was something the client wanted?
Yes.
Okay. And the language in here states that the intent of the trust is to provide for both Mrs. Richins and the children throughout their lifetime, right?
Right. We revised that the day of signing.
Great. You can take that down.
So that is her testimony. I know many of you are like, oh, these witnesses are kind of boring. I honestly find every witness fascinating. It is fascinating to be in a courtroom and to see it all come together. Everybody has their own little piece to add, and it might just be the latest person that happened to talk to Kouri Richins one time on the phone, or Eric Richins one time on the phone, but they come and they are prepared to testify and share what they know, and that helps. It could be that little tiny bit of testimony that makes or breaks a case. And when I say little testimony, this next witness was not a little testimony. This was Robert Josh Grossman, Kouri's boyfriend. We've heard about him in opening statements. We've heard about him sprinkled throughout. Now it was his turn to shine. He walked in the courtroom and there was some confusion in the beginning when he was being sworn in. It's like he didn't understand what was going on, and here's what happened.
Will you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the matter before the court to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, subject to the pains and penalties of perjury?
Sir, do you swear to tell the whole truth under the pains and penalties of perjury, yes or no?
I won't lie. I'll tell as much as the truth I can. In this setting, I assume all the answers to questions not honest.
Stand right there for a moment, if you don't mind. Can I invite you folks to take a walk for a moment? Please rise for the jury. Just pause for a moment. Have a seat for me if you don't mind. Mr. Grossman, do you understand the difference between what's true and what's not true?
I do.
Do you promise, under the pains and penalties of perjury, to tell the truth when you're asked questions?
Absolutely.
Anything further, Mr. Bloodworth?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Lewis?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Would you bring the jury back in?
After that, he obviously promised to tell the truth. And he says that he and Kouri started to date romantically at the beginning of COVID. They met in 2015, I believe, in South Carolina. And they met several years. I don't know if it was 2015. They met in South Carolina. She was flipping a house and needed help. He responded to the help wanted sign and began doing work for her. They'd go months, sometimes years without communication. In 2020, COVID, he moved to Utah to help Kouri flip houses. He said, me and my dog stayed in a house in Heber, in a house that Kouri was flipping. They didn't have a contract, no set guarantee for what type of money he'd get and whatnot, but she did say that she would pay him, and she did pay him and gave him free rent. The romantic relationship began, and then Kouri booked them a vacation to go to the Caribbean for his birthday. And it was going to be a romantic getaway in April of 2022. Remember, Eric died in March. They ended up never going on that vacation. We saw a lot of texts. I'm not going to go through the texts because, one, you can go review them all. There was just a lot of texts from many, many different dates in February, March. In fact, I'll tell you the dates. We saw the texts, and it kind of led up. November 29th of 2021, January 9th of 22, February 14th of 22, the 15th, the 19th, the 23rd. So we're leading up to Eric's death. March 2nd, March 3rd, March 4th, March 20th, April 8th, after he died, and April 15th. The prosecutor did not have him read the text. He did have them read the text. They were put up on the screen. He would have the jury read the text, and there was a lot of emotional reaction from Robert on the stand, even though he wasn't reading the texts. In fact, here's just some of the emotional reaction he had.
And when you moved to Utah, where did you stay?
Initially, I stayed at a flip that she had acquired in Heber. I had my dog with me. We do live-in flips, me and the dog. Yeah.
Other than accommodations, did she pay you for your service?
We didn't have any contractual agreement, you know. She took care of me, you know. I lived for free. She gave me money whenever I needed it. I just, you know, I liked her, so I'd worked for free. Not that she didn't, you know, pay me. She did from time to time in lump sums. And
Did she also give you a truck?
yes, she bought me a truck. 2 of them. Bought me one, traded it in, got another one at one point. Didn't trade it in, gave it to her mother. Yeah.
After the texts, the judge says we probably need to take a break. We probably need to have a restroom break. And so he dismissed the jurors, and then this little encounter happened. So he wanted to stay. He had something to say. We were waiting for him to find out what that was. We came back from break. There were more texts. And then it ended up that Kouri, I'll kind of summarize some of the text. There was a lot of love messaging back and forth, him really wanting to be with her, sometimes disagreements, them talking about the houses. And then at one point, on the 15th of April of 22, she's really upset. She says, I've had 22 cops search my damn house Wednesday for 8 hours. This crap keeps getting worse and worse. He says, searching your house for what? She responds, the autopsy report isn't done yet, but the toxicology report came back. He had fentanyl in his system. She goes on to complain about the cops not reading her rights and Eric's weed gummies. She says, Eric does not do drugs and ate a ton of edibles. This is also freaking stupid and crazy. That's a message summarized. After this, so the text message portion of his testimony was about half. And he didn't say anything. It was just text being shown. So that's why it's kind of awkward to go through it all with you now. You can go watch all that. After that, he was asked about the next time he actually saw Kouri Richins in person. They went for a drive in the mountains.
What happened when you met up with him?
I forget where we met, but we rode up into the Uinta Mountains together. Two vehicles, I think. I can't remember. We both wound up in hers, though, in her vehicle. We sat there and talked.
Did you talk about Eric?
Yes. Yeah, that was the first opportunity to really, just, you know, that was the first time.
Did there come a time during that discussion that Kouri Richins asked you about killing?
you want me to contextualize it?
Please.
So, yeah, you know, we sat there and talked for quite a while, you know, and I had never seen her that way, obviously. It was a heavy conversation. And I'm not used to that with her. She's not used to being open like that. So at one point, my opinion then, probably still now, looking back, was that, you know, she was looking for any reason. I think she was exhausted emotionally. And I think she was looking for a reason to divert the conversation away from herself, because she does that. She does that about lots of things in every normal life, you know. And I think that's what she did. She asked me, go ahead, I'll let you ask, I know you.
Sure.
But
Did she ask you a question about killing?
she did, ask me yeah.
What's her did she ask?
She asked if I had ever killed anybody.
And was that specific to killed anybody while serving in Iraq?
Right,
Did you respond?
I did,
Did she ask a follow-up question?
yes.
Sir, what was that follow-up question?
She asked me how it made me feel or something along those lines. And then I answered her. I took it as not out of the normal, though, really.
Did you and Kouri Richins stay romantically involved after Eric Richins' death?
Yes.
For how long?
You'd have to look at my phones to tell me that. I'm gonna guess, bless you, 6 months, maybe 8, 10.
After that conversation, about 6, 7, 8 months later, they broke up. He said that things changed after Eric died. Things were not the same. Another recess, the judge told everyone remain in the courtroom, do not leave except the witness. Grossman, he was able to go to the bathroom. The judge didn't want anyone talking to him. He goes to the bathroom. He comes back in, and Wendy Lewis, the defense attorney, cross-examines him. She asks about a couple of the texts and asks if he has used illicit drugs. He did say, yes, I have used illicit drugs. Fair. He says fair. Asked about this, a couple of the other texts. It sounds like he really wanted to be with her. And obviously she's married. And he knew that she was married. Knew they were having the affair. Knew all of that. Knew about the Midway Mansion. And then he was stunned when Eric died. Completely stunned. They were supposed to meet for brunch and mimosas on March 4th. And when she didn't show up, he said Kouri was always on time, never a minute late. She didn't show up, he became concerned. Here's what he said.
We were supposed to meet sometime mid-morning for brunch. Brunch and mimosas was the plan.
Okay. Can we pull up states 238-D? If we go to the one where it says hang in there. Just a minute, she'll pull up the text and. Well, you can't see it on the screen. Okay, here we go. So, this is again March 2nd, 2022 in the evening, right?
Yes.
And Kouri implies that you're sad or having a difficult day, correct?
Yes.
Do you remember why you were sad? If you don't, that's fine, but if you do.
I don't.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
That's fine. and she tells you to just give her a few days and hang in there until Friday. Correct?
Yes.
Well, let me ask you this. When she told you to hang in there till Friday, was that because she was planning on meeting you for brunch on Friday?
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
Do you know why?
Hold on. Are you referring to the Friday or to the last question?
Your Honor, the question that essentially asked what Kouri Richins was thinking by Friday.
I can rephrase it. It's
Please
fine.
do. Sustain. Thank you.
Okay. Why was she telling you to hang in there till Friday? What was going to happen on Friday?
Objection.
Hold on for a second.
Same thing.
Sustained as a speculation as to why Ms. Richins was waiting. The question regarding what he recalls was going to happen on Friday is permissible. If you'd answer that, sir.
The only thing I knew about Friday was brunch and mimosas. So,
Okay.
and the closing on the house. She was getting the keys that day.
So that was a big day.
Right.
Did she ever tell you that you were going to be together on Friday permanently?
Objection, Your Honor.
It's,
Dickerson.
I think he can say yes or no. We're not asking what Ms. Richins said specifically.
It's very specific in that question, sustained.
All right, let me ask it this way. Did you ever have the impression that come Friday, the two of you were going to be together forever?
Objection, Your Honor. Foundation on how he would get an impression.
I'm going to overrule that one. Go ahead, sir.
No.
Did you ever have any impression that as of Friday, Eric Richins would be out of the picture?
No.
All right.
It was about 10 days after that day that Eric died that they went up in the mountains and they talked about that. And he was overwhelmed with the fact that Eric had died. And he actually talked about how a little while later, well, let me just play it. This is how when he decided to come forward and say, I might have some information.
Oh, man. So, never for a moment did I have a clue, a hint, not a fleeting thought that something intentionally might have happened to him, right?
Right.
Let alone from her. So, you know, I think we'd gone a year without speaking at that point, and I don't know if I turned on the truck radio and heard she wrote a book and wasn't surprised, but then I started. I listened to the interview she gave about her book, and then maybe I did some research on my phone and saw that she had just been arrested, or either she just got arrested, I don't know, days later, a week later.
Okay. And then do you recall who you met with when you talked about this conversation?
After I found that out, I was overwhelmed with, guilt, sorrow over my wrongdoings, infidelity. And,
Okay.
and that's when I called. I was trying to get a hold of Eric's sister to tell her I don't think she was home. I spoke with her husband instead. Told him what I told him, and he told me, I forget the guy's name, but he said, I think there's somebody that would like to talk to you. And it was the Richins family private investigator. I think I called him immediately after I hung up, spoke with him. I don't recall the ins and outs of the conversation, but he told me that Kouri had done it, that she was guilty. He couldn't tell me why, but she and that changed everything for me, I was blown away, and then I'm like looking at everything in our past with a different set of goggles on, through different lenses, and I was trying to figure out if she did it and I could help That's what I was gonna do, and you know, that's
so
sometime after that. It wasn't the first time I met with the investigator. I think it was the second time or something. It dawned on me, oh man, you know, what about that one time she asked me this? What about the time she said that?
Okay,
And
so let me just stop you just for a minute so I can ask a couple of questions. So Investigator Gabler, the family's detective, just told you she's definitely guilty.
I don't know if he used the word definitely, but said that,
She did it.
right.
All right. So then you started thinking back with 20/20 hindsight about conversations,
Right.
which led you to think of the conversation in the Uentas. Fair?
Yes.
All right. Today, sitting here, when you think back on that conversation, does that conversation seem like it was a strange conversation to you?
Man, I can't tell one way from the other anymore. I've been confused for years, you know?
This conversation was about more than just what you did in Iraq, right?
Yeah.
This conversation, was it about just life and death in general?
Yeah, it's about that. It was about lots of things. It was about the boys. It was about shooting a bow. It was about God. It was about supernatural stuff.
And at the time you were having the conversation, did it seem like a strange conversation back at the time it happened?
At the time it happened, her and I just experienced supernatural things. So no, there was nothing that was surprising at that. But the talk was not surprising.
So it was in context with things that were going on and that you were talking about at that time.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know why you were talking about bow hunting? Why was that part of this? It seems a little different than the rest of the conversation.
She was talking about she was talking good things about Eric and how phenomenal of a man. And I don't know. And she mentioned it, how good her boys were, or I can't remember. One of them can, one of them can't. At that time.
Bow hunt?
Well, I don't know. It was one of them was shooting a bow, one of them wasn't.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember. But
So she wanted to learn to shoot a bow. Is that what that was about?
she did. She told me that.
Okay.
Sir, when you and Kouri Richins were in the Uentas 10 to 14 days after Eric's died, we were talking about a lot of things, right?
Yes, primarily that, because I hadn't even spoken to her hardly, so I was trying to see how she felt, you know what I mean?
And when you were talking about Eric and bow hunting and the boys, part of what you were talking about was what a phenomenal father he was, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything further, Ms. Lewis?
Phenomenal father, yeah.
Please listen to Ms.
Sorry,
Lewis.
sorry.
It's okay. Did Kouri give you an impression about how she felt that the boys had lost their phenomenal father?
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Sustained.
He says Eric was a wonderful guy, a wonderful father, wonderful. You can tell, at least my observation, Grossman was very sincere, very, very broken up about everything that has happened. And he was the last witness to take the stand today. Prosecution continues tomorrow. 9:30 is when court will start, not 8:30 again. They will continue with their witnesses. And then we don't have court on Friday. Court is dark on Friday. But if you want, go back and watch all the testimony from today, especially the boyfriend. If you're into the case, you'll want to watch the boyfriend. And we have that on our YouTube channel. You can go watch it all. I do want to take a minute to give some shout outs. I met Maya this morning and her father, Chris, from Spanish Fork. They brought me a payday candy bar. So kind of them. Notice I don't have it with me. Well, that tells you what happened with it. Wonderful, wonderful to meet them. She was 12. She's 12. She came to court. I admire the young people that are involved in that. She was probably, might have been a little bored, because for young kids it can be a little boring. For adults it can be a little boring, but she came, and I want to give them a shout out. And to another kind lady who did not want to be named, who brought me some donut holes. You all know how to take care of me when it comes to these trials. And to, many others. What am I doing? I have a couple of other shout outs. I'm talking fast tonight and working to get through this so I can get on the road before it's too dark. Greg Jones, hello Greg, Mike Jansen, Claudia Maddox, Ford Donington, Lilla Ray Woods, and we have people watching Provo, Minnesota, Sugar City, Idaho, Dingle, Idaho, Rapids City, South Dakota. Okay, until today I'd never heard an attorney thank a witness and wish them a very good day. Have you? I have. I've been in other trials where they've wished the witnesses a good day or said kind things. Jim Archibald, after they played that phone call that Summer Shiflett made to Lori Daybell in when she was in jail, he said, "I'm sorry you had to sit through that." So he was very compassionate about that. Yesterday, a lot of talk about HELOC. That's a home equity line of credit. I kind of explained that. If you want to go back and watch it, basically you take out a loan against the equity in your home, and that's what Kouri Richins did for $250,000, and then you basically have the cash. How many trials have I covered? Ooh, that's a good question. Too many to count. I would say big trials. This is probably my 5th or 6th big trial. And I always like them. Is Kouri in shackles? Yes, she is. Hi, Native. You notice that the swollen raised goose egg on the right of Kouri Richins' forehead. Tuesday, a triangular bruise surfaced under her right side cheekbone and covered with light makeup. Was she attacked in her jail cell? I do not know. I did notice the bump on her head yesterday being in the courtroom. It's not too noticeable, though. I doubt she was attacked. I doubt she's out with general population, but it's possible that she is. I do want to correct something. Yesterday I said that she was within 1 arm's reach of me. More like 3 or 4 arms. I couldn't like reach out and touch her. I kind of explained that last night, maybe exaggerated a little bit. I realized this morning when I sat down in the courtroom, I'm like, she's actually further than I thought, but she still is very close. Here's where you can follow me. I'm on Insta, Facebook, and X, and YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't. One other thing, many of you are asking about CrimeCon. They're starting to make announcements of who's going to be there. I'm going to be there. I hope you are too. You can register. Use the promo code EATON, EATON. You'll get 10% off a standard badge. It would be wonderful to have you join us. It should be a lot of fun at CrimeCon. Can't say what I'm talking about just yet, but it's going to be good. And I know that you are good because you watched tonight. Thank you, everybody. Here's where you can find me. I just said that. What am I talking about? I better get on the road here. I got to get home to see my family. I'll be doing live updates tomorrow. Again, 9:30. Back here tomorrow night for Courtroom Insider, 7 p.m., everybody. Have a good night. Take care. Bye-bye.